All right, trying something a little bit different. Excuse the extremely horrific hair, but yeah, it is what it is. You've seen me like this before. I'm not trying to say it was aliens, but it was aliens. Anyway, the video I kind of wanted to talk about today was about one that was put out by the Guardian. Uh, let's see here. Good grammar is now racist. Minority woman claims it's white, old, and prejudiced. Put out by somebody named Jesua at Work Warrior, etc. I'll post a link down below in the no bar, and that way you could see it for yourself. Um, However, I'm going to attempt to address some of the concerns that were made. So let's have a little bit of fun with it.
Are patronizing, pretentious, and just plain wrong.
Now, the video just starts off right away, basically with its premise that grammar snobs are patronizing, pretentious, and just plain wrong. Hang on, let me just zoom this back a little bit. There we go.
Grammar snobs are patronizing, pretentious, and just plain wrong. Put grammar in front of the word snob, and suddenly some people feel strangely proud. They shouldn't be. Most grammar snobs use an elite and increasingly outdated form of the English language, and they think they're somehow superior because of it.
Now, I don't necessarily know about a heightened form of the English language, and that thinking that people are somehow superior because they use an educated and academic form of English. But isn't it the whole point of learning how to speak correctly and to use words properly? Now, you notice she goes with the word snobs as if to indicate someone of a much higher station or a much higher rank. That essentially, if you've learned how to speak English properly, that indicates that you are that you have some form of privilege. Now, understand that to SJWs, privilege is always a bad thing. Never mind that many of them do enjoy some form of privilege somewhere. They do enjoy some form of exclusive good treatment by one group or another. The goal here is to understand that when SJWs use the word privilege, it usually means class privilege or the dreaded white privilege. So privilege is always bad to SJWs. Moving right along.
In most cases, the mistakes being highlighted really don't matter at all. If I look around the room and say there are less people here than I expected, does it really need to be pointed out that because people can be counted, I should have said there are fewer people here? The fact.
Well, it doesn't necessarily need to be pointed out, but if you're trying to sound a little bit more educated than the average person, fewer would actually be slightly better to go with. Well, let her continue.
Most of us use the words less and fewer interchangeably without much confusion. I've never been to a supermarket where shoppers are scratching their heads about the 10 items or less lane. We get it. Some of these snobs believe that language evolves, but
well, yes, there are people who haven't scratched their heads at the 10 items or less lane, except when they try to add in more than 10 items. But the goal here is to try and accurately convey that there is to be fewer than 10 items. It can be up to 10, but it kind of needs to be less than 10. But I understand what you're trying to say, that some words are used interchangeably. I'll grant you that. But hey, pointing it out sometimes is necessary because you need to kind of learn how to use words correctly. Moving right along.
grammar doesn't. That's That's not true. It was once.
Hang on.
Some of these snobs believe that language evolves, but grammar doesn't. That's not true. It was once considered incorrect to start a sentence with words like and or but.
It still is considered incorrect to use words like and or but at the beginning of the sentence, because and or but are basically joining two concepts together in the same thought. Again, I understand what you're trying to say, but
And what about the rule that the standard pronoun in writing should be he?
Well, again, he is the gender neutral pronoun. Now, again, this is more SJW doublespeak, where essentially, we must try and remove men from the forefront. The standard gender neutral pronoun is he. Why? Because he could be anybody. She usually denotes a female.
Grammar snobs who will say that we need some sort of a common language, a set of rules that everyone can understand.
Okay.
Too often, they conveniently overlook the fact that the rules they're talking about aren't commonly held at all. They're just their rules.
Well, again, if you are the majority of your country, if you are not in the minority, then yes, those are the common rules that people should use when speaking. Why? Because they are the rules that are held by the majority. Just like if I were to go to the Dominican Republic and live there I would have to learn Spanish. I would have to speak Spanish much more fluently than I do now. If I were to go to Japan, I would have to speak Japanese. Why? Because that is the language that is spoken by a majority of the population that live there. If I were to be in a specific prefecture or a specific area of Japan that speaks a dialect of Japanese, I would have to learn that dialect and learn how to speak it properly. Why? Because that is the dominant language of the culture in which I am involving myself in and where I must interact with people on a social level. If I go to a place in Japan and I don't speak Japanese, guess what? People may be accommodating up to a certain point, but after a while, they're going to expect me to learn how to speak the language and be able to communicate with them, especially if I want to do business there.
The word literally, for example. I literally don't care if I'm using the word literally in the correct way according to some Elizabethan definition of correctness, and neither does the Oxford Dictionary. They've updated their definition of the word to reflect modern usage. It doesn't take much to see the power imbalance when it comes to grammar snobbery. The people pointing out the mistakes are more likely to be older, wealthier, whiter, or just plain academic.
Okay, I'll give you the older. I'll even give you the whiter. Wealthy, not so much. Academic, self-taught. I had to learn things on my own, do my own research, that sort of thing. I had to put in the time, the energy, and the effort to look up stuff so that way I can improve myself and, improve the level of education that I have, so I could be slightly less ignorant. But yeah, it's horrible to be so white. Ugh. I'm such a horrible person because my skin lacks melanin.
And the people they're treating with condescension.
Yes, because trying to be smarter and more educated and more enlightened is always a bad thing.
Often, it's a way to silence people, and that's particularly offensive when it's someone who might already be struggling to speak up.
Well, again, if you're struggling to speak up, it's helpful to teach that person how to speak correctly and how to communicate effectively so that way they're able to make their demand known in a way that people can understand them. You know, this way people know what they're talking about.
We should spend more time listening to what others have to say and less focusing on the grammar, what they say it with.
Well, if we don't understand what they're saying, and if we don't, understand how they're communicating, how are we going to know what they're saying? When you're teaching people the correct form of grammar, most times they're actually very grateful for that, mainly because they understand that they may not speak very well and they may not communicate very effectively. And the more they have, the more knowledge they have in how to communicate effectively, the better off they're going to be, because they'll be able to interact with their fellow Americans much better than they would if they were never corrected to begin with. But thank you very much. We appreciate the time and effort that you put into being condescending and patronizing and trying to lecture us on how we shouldn't help people communicate better, that we should just sit and listen. Anyway, see y'all later.